It's time for On the Farm in Alabama, bringing farmers and agribusiness the latest news from Alabama Extension and the Auburn University College of Agriculture. Now here's your host, Alabama Extension Regional Agent, Eddie McGriff.
I'd like to welcome everybody today to On the Farm in Alabama, and today as my guest I have Dr. Audrey Gamble, who is a soil scientist with Alabama Extension. And today we're going to be talking about lime and some of the new rules that will be coming down from the legislature, hopefully. And the first thing when we talk about how effective lime is when we're comparing one lime source to another, is we talk about CCEs.
Yeah, that's right. CCE, that's calcium carbonate equivalent, not to be confused with CEC, which we talk a lot about in soils, which is cation exchange capacity. So CCE has to do with that lime quality.
And everything is based off of a standard of pure calcium carbonate, which is 100%. So if it's above 100%, it's more effective than calcium carbonate. And if it's less than 100%, then it's not as effective.
That's right, and we have a law in the state of Alabama that dictates that any of our products that are sold as ag lime materials have to be at least 90% calcium carbonate equivalent.
And if it's sold as dolomitic limestone, it has to have a minimum of how much magnesium?
6% magnesium for that.
6% magnesium. Well, that only tells us part of the story on how effective lime is going to be. The other part that we need to think about is how fine that lime is. And really, so then we get into ECCEs, or relative neutralizing value, which is probably how it's going to be labeled.
That's right. So we've used measurements to determine how effective lime is. Like you mentioned, we call it either the effective calcium carbonate equivalent or the relative neutralizing value, and that takes into account not only the purity of the material, but also the particle size. So we have kind of a formula that we use in the state of Alabama in which we multiply. We have some different sieve sizes that we make sure materials pass through. So we want at least 90% of our material passing through a 10 mesh sieve, which is this larger sieve size, and then we have a smaller sieve size that we want at least 50% of the material to pass through this smaller 60 mesh sieve. So that's kind of the regulations that we have within the state. But there's a formula that we can use to kind of plug these numbers in, the amount that passes through the different sieve sizes, and it also takes into account that calcium carbonate equivalent to get an idea of the relative neutralizing value. And that's really just a way to say the effectiveness of a liming material.
Because the finer it is, the more quickly it's going to react.
That's right. It's easy to think about if you picture putting a rock of limestone on your soil, that's not going to be very effective. But even with particles that seem small that would pass through this sieve here, it still can take longer for them to react. So we consider anything that passes through the 60 mesh sieve to be 100% effective, and anything that passes through the 10 mesh but not the 60 mesh to be 50% effective. So if you meet the minimum qualifications within the state of Alabama, then that means you've got at least a relative neutralizing value of 63%. But we do have products that test much higher than that.
There is a law that hopefully will be passed. It's through the Senate. I know you've been involved in it to make sure that all lime has a relative neutralizing value.
That's right. So right now, on labels for lime, and anyone can request if they don't get it when they purchase lime, they can always request a label that tells the calcium carbonate equivalent and the percent passing through the sieve. But what this law that is currently been passed in the Senate and will go to the House this week is that the number for relative neutralizing value will have to be displayed on the label, so that it's an easier way for farmers to look at a product and say, okay, this is 63% effective and this other product is 90% effective. I need to be thinking about the price. I need to be considering these percentages when I'm considering what price they are and how much they're worth. So it's not really requiring any of the distributors or lime manufacturers to change anything in terms of what they have to test for. They already have to test for these things, but it's just kind of to increase transparency, I would say.
One of the reasons that this law is being enacted is because our precision agriculture uses relative neutralizing value, and there's no way to plug that in if they don't have it on the bag, or on the label, I should say.
Exactly. It's been an issue because with some of our retailers, people see that number and they're not familiar with what it means. They see that you have to insert a number, and they might think, oh, well, that's just the calcium carbonate equivalent, so they put in 90%, even though, you know, it may not be that high quality of lime. If you had the actual relative neutralizing value, it may actually show up later. So that is something, you know, one of the reasons that this has kind of come to be is because our technologies have changed and we have the ability to be more precise.
Well, it's going to be a benefit to the farmer because he's going to be able to determine liming sources and see which one is the best value. We weren't really able to do that with just CCE. We really needed that relative neutralizing value.
Mm-hmm. And I want to say one quick thing because I don't want to confuse anyone, but pelletized lime is used a lot by home gardeners and people with food plots and things like that. That is still materials. You can see what the percent passing through the sieve is. It's just that once those have been finely ground, then they've been pelletized. So those break down pretty easily. So I don't want to say that those products are bad products. They can be good for the home gardener or the deer food plot manager.
Yes. Well, I want to thank Audrey for being with us today on the farm.